Hello and welcome to the CNBC TV18 special. I'm Shireen Bhan and we're in conversation with two very special guests. Joining us on the program today, Martin Lundstedt, President and CEO of the Volvo Group. Also with us, Siddhartha Lal, the Managing Director and CEO of Eicher. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here. And the reason why we're here in conversation with them is because Volvo has completed 20 years in India and 10 years in this joint venture with Eicher. So congratulations to the two of you. Martin, let me start by asking you, you've got the entire Volvo board here in India, and the last time that you were here was exactly 10 years ago when you inked this joint venture. What's the India experience been like so far?
No, it has been very successful, and I mean, to be able to be here with a complete board as a CEO, obviously I'm traveling more frequently to India, but this is marking a very important moment for us. 10 successful years together with the Eicher Group, but also 20 years in India with our own operations. So very important and great week. So
what can we expect now in terms of both the investments as well as your aspiration to use India as an export hub? You've done what about over the last 10 years investments to the tune of a little over 3,000 crore rupees. What more can we expect?
No, but I think we can continue to expect a similar journey because there are so many things still to be done, so to speak. If we start with India, obviously with the growing economy that we see now at plus 7% in yearly growth rate, and probably more also to come, the need obviously of more sophisticated and sustainable transportation and infrastructure is a fact. And there we see that we can continue to play an important role together with our customers, and where the joint venture has played a very important role. But also, given that quick development that we have seen, and with the competence of the people here, we are very proud also that we have a number of global hubs that we are sitting on in India. Not at least, for example, our medium-duty global competence center, both when it comes to production and design, that we are already exporting more than 35,000 engines to Europe and to Americas, and soon also to start Japan, for example. So proud to see that.
Okay, so Asia is an engine of growth for Volvo, but to that, let me ask you, in terms of additional capacity now, the Pithampur plant is operational. You are looking at setting up additional capacity in Bhopal. Give me a sense of what we can expect over the next decade now, for instance.
So like you said, we've invested well over 3,000 crores, all out of internal accruals over the last decade. And we're actually, that trajectory has been growing over the last few years, because as we've been expanding our market and getting bigger in light and medium duty, and now recently much more in heavy duty trucks, which is the big pie. So what we're doing is our Pithampur facility, which is our original facility, is being, over time, it will be reserved more for medium and heavy duty, and the light duty will come in a new plant, a bespoke plant, which we're starting work now on that. It'll be ready in 18 to 24 months, and that's in Bhopal. Okay. So that in itself, that discrete investment is 400 crores, and on top of that is all the investment in R&D, in our distribution in India, and in various other areas. So there is a increased level of investment from our part, because we believe that the market is now moving towards higher value trucks, which is where our partnership is extremely strong.
So speaking of market share and speaking of the aspiration that you have with respect to this joint venture, if I'm looking at the SIAM data now, and in the MHCV market share is what, about 10%. The aspiration was at least 12 to 15% by the end of the decade. The decade is over now. You're not there yet. Has this been an area of disappointment?
Not at all, Sri. Not at all. It's been an amazing journey. If you just take the elements itself, in buses, from the start of our joint venture, we were around 6% market share. We are at 17% today. In 5 to 15 tons, which is where the Eicher brand was always strong, we were around just over 20%. Now we're over 30%. So that's 10% gain. It's in the heavy duty part in particular.
Exactly what I said.
The gain is not as much,
right?
But the point is that what we've put into place in the other parts of the business, which is a slow and steady, well, slow no, but it's a steady improvement. That's what's happened in heavy duty. So we've put in all the work, we put in the infrastructure, and we expect that from BS6, when Indian consumers will be wanting a different product altogether, we are ready and right at that point for the inflection, whenever that happens. We think it's BS6, but whenever that happens, we are the ones they're going to come to, because we have the modern trucks as opposed to the old legacy trucks which are going to be out of vogue quite soon.
So I'll get to the regulatory change and what that means for Volvo Eicher in just a second. But if I could stress on what we're seeing happen as far as the MHCV space is concerned, the incumbents continue to occupy dominant market share there. What is it going to take? What will be the levers that you will be able to exercise in order for you to step up the game there? I mean, if I were to even look at some of your newer or the younger peers in comparison, the Bharat Benzes of the world, they're sort of stepping up the game as well. So what will it take for you to try and take on the competition?
It's actually extremely complex, but to try and break it down, what it really takes is a shift in many different areas, and therefore the value to be seen. Today it's a very initial price driven market, because a lot of the players are single small operators who are just about able to afford a truck. As it moves on and as the logistics becomes more aggregated and more professional, that's when people look at lifetime value of truck. We offer a much better lifetime value of truck than others, but we may lose out on initial costs today. But when that delta of lifetime value becomes enough for people to say, you know what, I'm going with a higher value truck, which gives me, over the 5-year span, it gives me a much better economic return rather than just initial cost. That's when the change happens, and it's happening now. Segment by segment, it's happening now already.
Okay.
And we're going to move to tractor trailers soon. That's where the market is going to shift to already. It's going to move to more professional logistics, and they want lifetime value, not just initial cost. What
does it also mean in terms of profitability? If you're not going to get into taking on the incumbents on price cuts, then what does it eventually mean in terms of margins as well as profitability for this joint venture?
So if you see that, again, from the inception of the joint venture till now, in the last 10 years, even despite 2 downturns, one was immediately after 2007, as soon as we started joint venture, everything just went tumbling down. And after that, in 2011-12, the VECV operations have always been profitable. Our minimum profit was 4% in the worst year, which is 2011-12, and we've gone up to 10%. That's been our range. So we are very focused on profitability at VECV. We don't buy short-term market share. That's not how we play the game. We're a very long-term focused company, and profitable growth is our mantra. We don't necessarily, we look at other players, but we don't follow them, right? So what it's resulted in is a very resilient company. We are generating cash all the time. We are investing that cash back into long-term areas for our company, and you know, it's not, it doesn't sound so nice, because you know, but it's the right thing to do. Maybe it's not the most you know, outrageous strategy, but really it's chipping away, doing small things, and over time gaining share. And if we can do what we've done in other businesses, and I believe we can other areas, in a long term get 1% a year and if you see the growth rate of the joint venture, it's been 15% compounded over the last 10 years. That's what we want, and that's happening in heavy duty already.
Okay, so going back again to the product mix and the product portfolio, you know, we've got a massive pollution issue here in India. The government is moving towards smart mobility, electrification, so on and so forth. What is that going to mean in terms of your plans? And you know, variants, CNG variants, for instance, which you've launched in the market as well. Are we going to see a lot more of that?
No, I think, and thank you for that question, because if you think about it more from a macro perspective, we know, I mean, the world will need considerably more transportation, both of goods and people, because that is linked to the general aspiration of driving prosperity. Higher prosperity in terms of the middle class development, and also, I mean, the general economy means more transport. That must be considerably more sustainable in order to have a balance in, I mean, true sustainability, ecological, economical, social, ethical. And therefore, obviously, you will see a number of different alternatives when it comes to the powering. First of all, I would like to say that BS6 is a major step forward. So we are not forgetting what we can do here and now with the current infrastructure, meaning that And we are very proud to say also that we are already producing and engineering these type of levels in our joint venture, which makes us unique.
Right.
I mean, when people are talking about, I mean, that we have the global hub out of India, first they don't believe in it. When they feel the quality of it in Europe or in Latin America or in the UK,
so you're ready for the BS6 rollout?
We are already producing it and developing it here. So that is number one. Then obviously there will be different type of performance steps, and it will not be a silver bullet. It will be, as you say, CNG, depending also what you can, because it's both energy from a sustainability point of view, but it's also energy security. Right. And then it will be electromobility, where we are already one of the leading actors, because we were early out. Many says in many cases almost too early out before the need was there. In 2008, 2009 with buses. Today we have a massive, so to speak, experience of that. Right. Not only when it comes to the technology, electromobility, but the infrastructure. What does it take to build up the system? Sure. And we have already projects ongoing in our joint venture to drive from.
So what's the aspiration, if I can go back to the market share question? On the buses side, what, 17.5%, in excess of that. On the light and medium duty trucks, about 30% plus. So what can we expect, both in terms of market share addition, as well as what's the sort of volume outlook that you have?
Well, we're not giving very forward-looking statements, but
aspirational target over the next 10 years.
Again, like I said, generally, and that may change a little bit because in different segments. So generally, what we've been working towards is a 1% per year market share improvement. That means beat the market every single year, but it doesn't happen every year. In some years where competitors give huge price discounts and all of that, we may sort of flatten a bit. But over the decade, if we can say, well, we've grown on an average around 1% a year, 0.8% a year, that's the kind of market share that we aspire to, and where that will take us is beyond. Of course, in the end, we're part of the industry. So as the market grows for trucks, we will, and buses, we will grow. So yeah, that's the kind of aspiration I have. I don't know what to do as well.
I couldn't agree more, but I think also it's important to take two complementary perspectives to what Siddhartha was saying. First perspective is that as the market will mature with more advanced logistics, so to speak, every truck will represent a completely different value, not only for us but also for the customer. And therefore it's not only a unit game, it's about what type of solutions you are selling. And that is, I mean, one of the things. Another measurement of success for us as Volvo Group is how well we can actually utilize the success of what we have done in India, both as Volvo Group and our joint venture together with Eicher. Because already today we have 3, 4, 5 global platforms out from here. Engineering, some of the engineering hubs, IT, exports now of engines, and we are also exporting construction equipment, we are exporting buses, and I mean, it's obviously the success India for India, but it's also India for the world.
Martin was just talking about how this has been a win-win joint venture. I know that you believe in less is more, and that would probably explain why you decided to divest the tractor business, but committed to the CV space and to this joint venture, not looking at divesting anytime soon?
No, entirely committed. I think for us, commercial vehicles is a sunrise industry really in India. I mean, logistics is going to be an enormous part of the country, and the great thing is after 10 years and after such amazing growth that we've had and market share gain that we've had, we really believe we're at the start of something which is going to be so much bigger. VECV is only now we're slightly slow, so it's taken us 10 years to say now we work so well together that the next 10 years is looking so amazing, and we see that. I mean, all the pieces are falling into place, and it really looks very, very, very encouraging for us in the coming 10 years. So so this is really the starting point of this joint venture.
Okay, all right. So committed to the joint venture. Big challenges that you foresee in your experience of what you've had to deal with in India, and as you look at the opportunity going forward.
Now, first of all, as we said, I think the most important thing that has happened now. I mean, you can you can mention a number of very, very important reforms, as we said, GST, infrastructure, Make in India, where I think we are a brilliant example of that, and we are very proud to be part of that initiative. Digitalization, and that will come big time. I mean, you see that already on the smartphone usage, leapfrogged fixed telecom and go directly into smartphones. I mean, all of these are actually much more opportunities than challenges as I see it right now. So if I look upon it, consistency in what has been already put in place, I think is the name of the game. If that will happen, and also a forward-leaning sustainability agenda, as we have discussed, then again, India for India, we are there, but also India for the world, and that is exciting for all of us. And just to mention one thing, Siddhartha, is also that when we look at all the different parts of our organization, I mean, obviously it starts between management and the leadership, but in Volvo Eicher commercial vehicles, in all parts of the organization, people know each other. And that is the name of the game in order to be successful, because we are selling production equipment in reality. A commercial vehicle is the production equipment to transport. And what is the most important for our customers? Peace of mind. Uptime, efficiency, etc. And that I think we have paid a good base for that for the future.
If I may slip in a question or two on the Royal Enfield side of the business, Siddhartha, because at least from a market's perspective, there seems to be some degree of stress on what's happening on the sales front. What's the outlook? I mean, is it, one would imagine that fuel, insurance, workers' issues at your facility, but is there a demand issue as well, which is what some people now seem to start to talk about?
Yeah, so we're coming off the back of, I would say, nearly 50% growth year on year for the last 8 years. And what's happened is that, for good reasons, that slowed down to around 15 to 20%, right, the growth in Royal Enfield. And we're delighted with that. We think that's a good pace of growth for the next period moving forward. The way we see it is that there are absolutely no fundamental issues at all. So in fact, I'd rather say that the opportunity is still 5x, 10x as far as Royal Enfield is concerned in India. And then we have an enormous international agenda which we're just scratching the surface of. So if you look at our structure, we have still I'm talking about motorcycle market share. In the end, our national average is around 6%. In richer states like Kerala, it's 33%, Punjab is over 20%, in big cities it's 20-25%, let's say in Uttar Pradesh it's 3%, 4%. So there's headroom to grow in some of those states where you're currently at about under 5% market share. There's huge headroom to grow. But the question though arises is that for the last 3 months or so, you've seen single-digit growth, and that's where questions over the demand. And we understand that the 8 years have been fabulous. So there have been some small issues, like for example Kerala, where we have 33% market share. It's one of our biggest states, and not for others in the rest of the industry, but for us it's really big. Of course, there have been problems, and we're not selling half as many as we were normally. Again, in states like Karnataka, Maharashtra, there have been sudden road taxes, there have been sudden insurance increases, which have affected us slightly, and we have also had some mismatch of demand and supply due to new legislation of ABS and other things that have come in. So we have more products of a certain kind, people want a slightly different product. So I think for us, it's a temporary situation. We've got a lot of interesting things happening, and the basic demand in India for Royal Enfield continues to be strong. So when you say temporary situation, I mean, by when do you believe that you could get back to double-digit Well, again, I can't say that, but we have the festive season coming up and other things coming up. Is the festive season looking good? Because, I mean, if you look across industry, you're seeing a lot of benefits or discounts, whatever you'd like to call, being given out at this point in time. What's your sense on the festive demand? I can never look at it from that. The only way you will see at Royal Enfield is immediacy, because we are not a company, as you know, that's pushing the channel and stuffing the channel, right? We don't do that. So as a result, immediately any change in retail comes into our wholesale. So we're very quick to react, as we are in the truck business, both from parts, both from finished products. So we just like to keep the value chain extremely lean, the supply chain, and you'll see that. So It's difficult to say, the demand position over the next 3 months.
But do you feel today, with the visibility that you have, that you may need to revise downwards your 950,000 wholesale target for FY19?
Firstly, it's not a wholesale target. In the beginning of the year, we announced that our supply position will be in the order of 950,000. That's come down a little bit because we've had some strike and other issues. So that's 10,000-15,000 has already sort of come down from there. We will still be able to make a production, in that type of order. So maybe 10,000-15,000 down from that, and that still remains as our supply position. The demand position, we'll see. I mean, it will hopefully continue to evolve. We'll see in the next couple of months. Again, I'm a super long-term chap. So, what happens in a month here, a month there, it doesn't affect us really as much as maybe it affects the market.
Yes, that I would imagine. But on what has the street excited, that's the 650 twins. When can we expect them to launch here in India?
Yeah, so we've had an outstanding response globally in our launch in California. So it's been breathtaking actually what people have said and how they've liked the motorcycle. So now really the job is back on us to start manufacturing them in scale quantity, because we have been manufacturing them. And so yeah, so pretty much, I mean, we have some internal sort of things to cross, but pretty much by the end of this year and early next year, you'll see, I mean, by the end of this year for sure in stores and test rides, and delivery should start, well, close to the end of this year and early next year in India. And shipments have started, will start also to markets around the world. So pretty much, end of this quarter and early next quarter, in India and in a few select markets around the world, you'll see the 650 twins with customers on the road riding.
I know it's not a volume game for you, at least on the 650 side, but what's the aspiration that you're working with?
Both here? Volume game?
No, I'm saying it may not be, but what is the aspiration then here, both in India as well as the export strategy and the export plan? Again,
our aspirations are very high, and actually the feedback we've gotten, initial feedback, is tremendous. In India, we have 3 million customers. Of them, some of them obviously want to just continue and retain what they have, but there's a lot who ask us, look, we want something a bit more than what we have. So we have a strong audience. We expect that it will, a product can be an instant hit, or it can be something that may take some time to evolve in the market. So we don't want to give number aspirations, because that just sort of affects everyone's minds in the market. But we really think that this could do really well in India, but also globally. I mean, the space is wide open. There's nobody in the space globally, and we're there at the right moment with an outstanding motorcycle, and we think we can, this is going to be a growth engine to become a global brand in the next 5 years. This will be the start of it. Okay, so if the 650 is going to be the start of the global strategy, where do you find yourself today? I mean, you've moved base, it's been a few years now, and you've had the global aspiration for the last few years. Where do things stand today as far as your export aspirations are concerned on the motorcycle side? So like I said, over the last few years, we've been setting up the base. We've been putting up distribution. We've been forming very strong teams in markets like Brazil, in markets like Colombia, in North America, in Europe, in Thailand, Indonesia, and some ASEAN countries. So that's the kind of people and distribution that we've been setting up. Now, on top of that, we brought in these absolute world-class products which are of a higher performance level, which a lot of these countries demand compared to, let's say, 350, which is still considered smaller in some of these markets. And so it's a decade-long exercise for us, this global thing. It's not 1 year, 2 years. So I believe over the next decade, you're going to see the first global consumer company to come out of India. What makes you most confident on both of the businesses, the commercial vehicle side as well as the Royal Enfield business? So I think on the commercial vehicles, we've got an outstanding organization, and we have an outstanding partnership which really takes the best of both worlds. That's the tough part. Normally you get, you think you'll get the best of both worlds, but you end up getting the bureaucracy of both worlds or the worst of both worlds. But really we've set this up for success, to get what Volvo's really good at, to bring it into India, and to keep it frugal, to keep it tight, to keep it local. We've been able to do that. So we're a strong organization. It's a modern commercial vehicle company, which is really modernizing transportation, commercial transportation in India. So we're really at that point where we've got so much learning, so much let's say, foundation that it's ripe for making the big moves and the big changes, and that's really what the next 10 years will be about in our commercial vehicle company.
And Royal Enfield?
Royal Enfield, what gives me, it's a recency effect I have to say, but what gives me immense excitement is just what's happened in the last few weeks in California. Our new twins, we've been working on it for so long. For the first time your new babies are out with the most what do you call it, with the media, right? And they could be critical, they could be whatever. So the fact that we've got this amazingly outstanding response gives us, well, a bit of relief, but so much excitement that, look, what all the investments that we've been doing, we've had this UK Tech Center with 140 people, we've added 250 people in India in R&D, we've expanded our quality organization has gone up tremendously. Has that given us results? Now, yes, with the 650 we can say we've got a world-class product at world-class quality, and we're confident of that, and that's the new Royal Enfield.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck with Volvo Eicher and Royal Enfield. Martin, congratulations on completing a decade here in India with the joint venture, and we wish you many successes going forward. Thank you very much for joining us on CNBC TV18. With that, it is time for us to wrap up the CNBC TV18 special. From all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.